Vikings 23, Cardinals 22 does not do this game justice. That is the final score. That is the truth. Does not do justice what transpired at U.S. Bank Stadium on this fine Sunday afternoon. Michael Rand here to talk through the comeback, to talk through the process of what got us here to the comeback. The macro is the Vikings are 10-2. They're 10-2. They won another one-score game. They're 7-1 in one-score games 2 years after being 11-0 in one-score games. Last year, they were like 6-8 in one-score games. Regression to the mean, whatever it was. Quarterbacks, they used 4 different starting quarterbacks last year. It's different. This team is different even than it was 2 years ago. They're making all the big plays right now, but it looked bad for a while. I'm getting texts from my dad. Guess it's just not the Vikings' day. I'm complaining on the text chain with Drew McGarry, noted Vikings fan, defector, all the stuff he does that he does very well. We're texting back and forth like, hey, pass rush non-existent. Aaron Jones don't need a fumbling running back problem right now. He's basically said Drew's like midway through the third quarter. It's just not their day. 19-6 at that point. Hard to say it was going to be their day at that point. I didn't like completely give up, but man, they were so flat. They were just getting outplayed. Like Arizona's a good team. Let's start there. Arizona's a good team. And this was the best team that they have played since October 24th when they played the Los Angeles Rams and lost on Thursday Night Football. Since then, they had like the mini bye, of course. Then they beat the Colts with Joe Flacco playing quarterback. They beat the Jaguars 12-7 with Mac Jones playing quarterback. They beat the Titans again with, Will Levis, just, a more paint by numbers game, but still some drama in that game. And then they had to resuscitate themselves after giving up an 11-point lead with 30 seconds left against the Bears last week. So that's the process of them getting here. They've 4 weeks in a row of teams that are either short on talent, short on coaching proficiency, or both. The Cardinals have both of those things. They have talent. They're probably overachieving a little bit this year, but they have talent. They have talent on offense. Their defense is good. They got to the Vikings early, got to them with their blitzes, got to them with their packages, got to them with their schemes, everything like that. They're a well-coached team. I think Jonathan Gannon's doing a nice job. Mike Rallis, shout out, former Gopher, has done an excellent job as their defensive coordinator. They're outgaining the Vikings like 3-1 at halftime. It's like 228-75. Vikings are going nowhere. They come out at the start of the third quarter, miss a field goal, even though they're only down 9-6. You're like, man, maybe it's just not their day. Then the Cardinals go down. Field goal. Vikings can't convert again. Touchdown. It's 19-6. Harrison Smith's out for a little while. He does come back. Stephon Gilmore goes out. He doesn't come back. That's a concern. That's a hamstring for an older player, a guy they've got to have down the stretch. We'll see how long he's out. Aaron Jones fumbles twice, loses one of them. He's in the doghouse a bit. They're rotating through Cam Akers, Ty Chandler, Aaron Jones. Jones drops a potential touchdown pass that could have given the lead when they got it back to 19-13. They have to kick a field goal. It's 19-16. You're like, man, maybe even with the rally, it's just not their day. But they get a stop. They barely get a stop. They force the Cardinals back on that next drive. Cardinals drive all the way down, but they get an intentional grounding that kind of resets things. Cardinals get it down to 4th and goal from the 4, and they're up 3 with about 3 minutes left. And we've seen this game before. We've seen this movie before. We've seen the Vikings do this. I don't know how many times a Leslie Frazier Vikings team or even the later Mike Zimmer Vikings teams would kick a field goal in the situation, go up 6. Next thing you know, the other team is going to come down and score the winning touchdown. Cardinals opt for the field goal, go up 22-16. That turns out to be a blessing for the Vikings. Even if they would have stopped them there, the broadcasters were all over it. I think they were absolutely right. By the way, this broadcast team was pretty good. The Fox team was pretty good. Greg Olson with the color commentary. I think it was Mark Davis at the play-by-play. So much better than it's been the past couple weeks. It was pretty good. It was a pretty good team. They're all over it. They're like, you go for it there. the other team gets conservative, the worst you probably have to worry about is them kicking a field goal on you and tying it. You go up 6, everything becomes 4 down territory like it was for the Vikings. They end up having to go for it on 4th down on that drive. It's like 4th and 7. They're in Cardinals territory. If it was a 3-point game, they might have kicked a field goal. Instead, they have to go for it because they're down 6. Time's not working on their favor. They go for it. Darnold gets it out to Jefferson about a half second, split second before he gets creamed. Jefferson brings it in for a 1st down, fresh set of downs. They get it down to the goal line. Aaron Jones, redemption arc, touchdown. Now I'm thinking, okay, great. They scored. Yes, they made the extra point, but there's a minute 13 left, and the Cardinals have all 3 timeouts left. Cardinals have been moving the ball at will all day. Cardinals have been the better team for the vast majority of the day. They don't have the momentum, but they've got Kyler Murray plus the running game had been about 400 yards of offense at that point. They've been effectively moving the ball. James Conner, short passes. Their tight end caught about 1 million balls. Trey McBride, 12 catches for 96 yards. Like, they can dink and dunk their way to the 30. It felt like you get 40 yards with about 5 or 6 short completions. You got 3 timeouts. You can work your way down the field. I'm like, they scored, but they scored too soon. Like, that's the instinct of the Vikings. Vikings, someone who's watched a bunch of Vikings games, right? Like, they scored too soon. But instead, like we watched, they get a stop, they get a sack, they get a pick at the very end, 23-22. Again, Vikings have played a lot of close games this year, but they haven't played a lot of games like that where they're in the chase position pretty much all game. They've played a lot of close games this year where a team gets within a score late and it's not so tenuous, not so tight. They've got to recover an onside kick, or someone scores with like 10 seconds left, and it's still technically a 1-score game. The Bears game should have been like that if they would have recovered the onside kick, but I digress. This one is different. They're in the trail position the entire game. Their very first lead is when they scored that touchdown to go up 23-22 with a minute left. That is the very definition of not how they've been doing it all year. They've been very much playing with a lead, very much playing ahead. They did not do that today. So for Sam Darnold to go touchdown, field goal, touchdown on their 3 final drives when they get some tempo going after basically doing nothing all day, being harassed, standing in, making some big-time throws against some big-time pressure, that's huge. That's just, again, more evidence of his growth, more evidence of what he's done this season. I'm sure he's going to get a game ball in the Kevin O'Connell post-game speech. I'm sure you're going to get one for the defensive players, probably for Byron Murphy getting a pick against his former teammate. Maybe for the interior run. For this Redmond guy, play Redmond more. Man, he had like 2 run stops, like 2 tackles for loss. I never see him play. Let's see a little bit more of him. But, on a day where they weren't at their best for about 3 quarters plus, they still find a way to win against a pretty good team, a team that is in contention to be a division winner, a playoff team. That's impressive. That was as fun of a game as I can remember them playing this season, just start to finish, the rally, tense, tight, felt like a playoff game. So that's what got it done. I'm going to run some questions, some answers right now. Noby Dent on Blue Sky says, we're 10-2, and I'm comforted by the fact that the QB that has led us there will be elsewhere next season. Seems like a nice guy, but wow, is he a roller coaster of good and bad, of crazy good and bad. I get it. That is kind of the Sam Darnold experience, but he hasn't thrown an interception at all the last 3 weeks. I know he wasn't moving the ball a ton early. I put that more on the offensive line than anything. I think you've gotten 90% of the good of Sam Darnold these last few weeks. I get that maybe that's not the perfect long-term solution, that he's given you maybe the best year of his career right now, certainly to this point, but I'm not here for the Sam Darnold slander. I think he's been playing at an exceptionally high level, making big time throws, fitting them into windows that only his arm, only his vision can see. So I'm pretty impressed by him. 23 touchdowns, 10 interceptions this season, a 10-2 record. Yeah, that's maybe not your long-term guy. J.J. McCarthy's your long-term guy, but Sam Darnold, the roller coaster has been up more than it's been down. Giles Farrell on Blue Sky says, Greg Olsen made a great point on the broadcast that the Vikings picking up the tempo on offense helped get them going in the 4th. With the offense almost sputtering for the past month, would like to see that up-tempo carried over to Atlanta next week in some capacity. I'm with him. I think they're better when they do that. I think they get some rhythm. I think they've tried to do that at various points this season. Sometimes they do it for like 2 or 3 plays where they want to catch a team in a certain personnel grouping where they think they've got an edge, where they think they've got some tired defensive players, where they think they can run, certain plays and gain an edge against somebody. But I'd love to see it a little bit more. The risk you run, of course, is if you go 3 and out and it takes you like a second to get 3 and out, your defense is going to be on the field quickly. But I think that's mitigated by the flow that they get. And then, sometimes you run that tempo, you get up to the line, then you slow it down, you catch teams like that. So I agree. I think they're better when they're doing that. I think it gets Darnold into a better rhythm. So I tend to agree with that sentiment about using tempo more often. Nick says, is this 2022 all over again, or does this team have a legitimate chance to make noise in the postseason? That's a great question. I think this team is different. I think they're built different than the team. This is different than that team. I think this is a better team than the team from 2022. That team seemed like more smoke and mirrors. I feel like this team has a top 10 caliber defense. Now I'm concerned about the injuries, but they make enough big plays on defense. It's not just bend but don't break. They can do enough stuff. It's not all scheme. They've got enough talent on defense and enough playmakers on offense that I feel like, while I think it will be a tough road, even though they're 10-2, to catch the Lions, like it's probably going to be a 5 or a 6 seed. You're going on the road in the first round of the playoffs as a 13-4, a 12-5 wild card. That's tough. I'm not going to love their seed. I do like the way they play, though. I think this is a much better team than the one 2 years ago. So I guess somewhere in the middle. I had very little faith in that team 2 years ago to make any kind of playoff run, even though they had home field in that first round game, should have beaten the Giants. That team was not built for playoff success, for sustained success. But I do believe this team is much better than that, capable of winning a playoff game, maybe 2, depends on the opponent. The matchups will determine a lot of that. I think that there's something to that. Skolny says they were dead flat for 3.5 quarters, then flipped the switch. Also couldn't believe the Cardinals kicked the field goal on 4th and 4. I'm with you. I think they should have gone for it. I don't know if it would have ultimately changed the outcome of the game, but they were moved. The Cardinals were moving the ball generally when they wanted to, and to just hit pause there, they were pretty conservative a lot of times when it got down to the goal, when it got down to that, 4th and 2 on the opening drive. They decided to get points. Like the Vikings had to work harder to stay in the game earlier. The Cardinals should have been up 10, I feel like, instead of 3 at halftime. Like there were some definite conservative moments. I get that their defense has been playing really well, that maybe they thought, okay, we're going to make Sam Darnold work. We're going to force him into a turnover, and that's how we're going to win the game in the end. But I really thought they should have gone for it in a couple of those scenarios where they didn't. Trusted Kyler Murray, trusted some of the decisions he was making. So I think that was a miss on their part. I think they could have done more with that for sure. End of the day, though, the Vikings get it done. Aaron Jones, like I said, the redemption story. Sam Darnold, after not doing much, not getting much protection, they're getting third down sacks all over the place, getting run off the field. He comes through with touchdown, field goal, touchdown on their last 3 drives. The defense makes a huge stand at the end. Less of the bend but don't break, more of the getting up in your face, putting pressure on you. Strip sack of Kyler Murray by Jonathan Grenard finally got to him. And then, of course, the huge play by Shaq Griffin at the end. Banged up secondary. Don't have everybody you want in there, but still able to get it done. Now, next week, Falcons. Can you think of a bigger statement than coming and just running the Falcons? Sam Darnold making big-time throws. Kirk Cousins doing his thing, but limiting him, knowing what his game is. That's going to be tons of fun next week. After that, you get the Bears against. You kind of got to take advantage of this. Like, this was a big one. To bank this one in the win column. I've been saying that for like every week. Like, to bank these games in the win column. This one against a good team, but maybe when you didn't play their best, certainly didn't play your best for 3.5 quarters. To be able to squeeze out a win, that is what good teams do. It's also just completely necessary in this NFC North if you're going to have any chance of winning the division, if you're going to have any chance of hanging in there and having a shot in the end to be a 1 seed, where then you're talking about first round bye, better playoff matchups, home field, things like that. if you're talking about that in the end, if you manage to get yourself that at the end of the day, then yes, absolutely, this is a team that can go to the conference championship. They can go to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're the best team in the conference. I think Detroit is pretty clearly that. I don't know if they're the second best team. I think Philadelphia is playing awfully well. They're definitely in the top four, though. They're definitely a top four team. The problem is they're in the best division in football, and they might end up as the wild card, and that is going to hurt them when it comes playoff time unless they are able to secure home field advantage throughout. That's still out there in front of them. If Detroit loses to Green Bay, if the Vikings keep taking care of their business, if the Vikings beat Detroit in that finale that could be a winner-take-all at the end, you never know. Not giving up on that possibility, not saying Detroit's unbeatable. They almost lost to the Bears on Thanksgiving. Could have gone to overtime if Matt Eberflus wasn't a total joke of a coach. But it's right there in front of them, but they still have so much work to do. They're going to have to play better in some of these critical games and some of these weighty downs, as Kevin O'Connell likes to say. So it's only going to get harder from here in a lot of these games down the stretch. Green Bay, Detroit, those are going to be big games. You can't overlook Atlanta. Atlanta's a good team. You can't overlook the Bears. They're playing better. You got the Seahawks in there still, but a lot of home games in there, a lot of opportunities. Winning this one keeps it all in front of them in a way that just didn't seem possible for most of the day. That'll do it for me. Thanks for joining me live. Thanks for joining on the replay if that's what you're watching. Royce with me on Monday's podcast. I'll talk to you then.